getting closer and closer to the Papa World Pinball Championships, and I am continuing this little ramp up towards Papa with another great interview with a top player, and I'm really glad to have completed the Sharp family trifecta tonight on episode 141. Let's go. Welcome to Coast2Coast Pinball. Thanks for listening. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast commentary, man out of quarters. Tonight, I welcome Mr. Zach Sharp, number 4 ranked IFPA World Pinball Player Rankings points man in the world, and obviously one of the best players in the world, brother to Josh Sharp, son of Roger Sharp. The Sharp family obviously is one of the biggest names in pinball and pinball's history, and certainly competitive pinball today with the Sharp brothers. So it's really nice to kind of complete the trifecta, as we say here, with the Sharp family. I think getting to hear Zach's take on pinball as a competitive sport or game, whatever you want to call it, versus both his brother Josh's and versus episode 140 guest Kaylee George is very interesting. I think Zach has some really good advice in this interview for those of you who are looking to play more pinball tournaments. I think there's some really good grains of I don't know, wisdom in this interview. So listen to what Zach says. I think this is an awesome interview. I hope you guys enjoy it. So let's get this thing going. I would like to welcome to Coast2Coast Pinball, Mr. Zach Sharp. How are you doing tonight, Zach?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I am really good. I had to have you on. It's like completing the Triforce or the trifecta of the Sharp pinball family. It wouldn't have been complete.
I'm the least interesting of the bunch, so hopefully I can entertain you for a little bit.
I don't know if you're the least interesting or if you just think you're the least interesting. You're certainly the highest ranked in the IFPA currently, if that speaks for something, right?
Oh, yeah. Any bragging rights over Josh, I'll take.
So you are the younger brother, and I did find it sort of amusing when Josh and I were talking about you coming on the show that he was very quick to bring up, make sure you mention that he's the Phil Mickelson of pinball. He's never won one of the big ones. I thought, geez, man.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, it's funny. We were just joking and looking at the majors list, and I currently have the most top 4 finishes without ever winning a major. And the fact that I finished 2013 ranked number 1 was pretty crazy, because it's just amazing how I haven't finished first in any of the majors.
It's an interesting thing, because when I started really, going out to tournaments and, following the competitive side more so, your name is always by any player, when you talk about who are the best players in the world, Zach Sharp always gets mentioned. And I didn't realize you hadn't won one of the, quote, major tournaments out there.
Yeah, I mean, I've always prided myself on just being consistent, and I don't treat, Papa or any other major tournament any different than, our league finals. And, to me, in my brain, it's just a percentage thing that, one day it's going to happen. I just hope it's sooner than later.
You're currently ranked 4th in the world, and I know that, you say that you treat them all the same, but we're getting really close to Papa 18 right now. Are you starting to think about the tournament, or is it just that's the next thing on the schedule, and when you get to Pittsburgh, you get to Pittsburgh?
Actually, the Louisville Pinball Expo is this coming weekend, so I would say that probably has my attention more so than Papa at the moment. Funny enough, as much as I'm looking forward to Papa, the circuit final, the A division, I am really geared up and psyched to play Split Flipper with Josh.
I was going to ask if you and Josh were going to team up in Split Flipper, dashing my hopes of having a Sharp as my partner.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
in fact, we want to run the gauntlet. We want to get first in qualifying on every single game and just steamroll and win the whole thing.
I would actually think that's a pretty good a good bet as far as percentages go. Well, that's awesome. Speaking of the circuit final, I think I have you looking at my last update here. You're ranked second going into the 2014-15 Papa Circuit final. Is that correct?
At the moment, I can hop Trent if I do well this weekend.
And Louisville is the last stop before the final.
Yes, and I know that Yornian is also going to be there. So it's a 3-horse race, and we'll see what happens.
And also, I noticed you've had pretty good scores for there, obviously, to be ranked second. Have you won any of the circuit events this year?
I have not, actually. I know last year, or the last couple of years, I've had a nice steady stream of crowns next to my name. And unfortunately, this year I've just finished second a couple times, top 4, which, for me personally, I just love making the finals because I know with the level of competition out there, it's so easy to just get swallowed up and lose in that first round. So, the fact that I've been able to kind of get out of the first couple of rounds and make the finals, somewhat consistently, I always, try to pride myself on, being consistent.
What do you think the difference is for a player of your caliber, someone who's literally been playing for decades now competitively? When you get to a tournament, say Louisville this coming up weekend, what do you think goes through your mindset in preparation for that? Are you looking at the games ahead of time? Do you already know what you're playing, or do you just sort of get there like everybody else and nothing different? Do you think there's a lot of different preparation?
I know other people are different. I'm pretty relaxed, so I don't really do much, I guess, mental preparation. If I know the game list, then, I might salivate over a few titles, or, if there's something in there that I'm not aware of, I'll do a little research, or, pretty much ask Josh on anything. Besides that, my mindset, and this goes for pretty much any tournament that does not involve match play, I think of qualifying as just work. Sometimes it's annoying and it takes a while, or, sometimes you're lucky and you get it done early. But with a lot of the tournaments kind of with the herb style, or the pump and dump as people like to call it, I don't want to say it's not fun, because playing pinball is always fun in my book. I just like to, play against people in situational play.
Josh told me one time that he loves to qualify in the morning, that's his favorite time. Do you have a time of day you like to get into the qualifying area and get your games going?
I am all over the map. I would say I probably play a little better in the morning, and then throughout the day. But sometimes at night, if I'm on lack of sleep, I can kind of have my bad session 5, as I like to call it.
Yeah. Looking forward to Papa, it's kind of why I'm trying to have some of the best players on the show as we get ramped up for that, because it is sort of the World Championship, and the circuit final takes place that week, and there's a lot going on around it. What's your take on qualifying at Papa versus other tournaments? It's obviously towards consistency. In fact, it's vital to be consistent, which you say you pride yourself in. How do you like to run a ticket in that A bank now that that's where you're locked in for the rest of your life? Do you do it all at once? Do you spread it out? Do you jump around? What are your thoughts on the actual qualification process at Papa?
It's funny, not to be redundant with what Josh says, because we share the same brain on many things. But we're a bit of an anomaly. We like to play our tickets really long. I don't know if it's the fact of putting extra pressure on myself. I just like taking my time. I like to play a game, see what the score is, where that stands, take a little bit of a break, maybe play a classic entry, go back and play my second game. And it's just a nice, slow, methodical pace versus game, ticket, over, next, game. That's not usually how I operate.
Do you find it difficult with, sets of games that can be so widely varied from when the era they're from or how they play? Do you find it difficult to jump between games, jumping from something like last year where we saw, some older games like an Alien Star and then jumping to a Metallica? Is that difficult for you as a player?
Me personally, not really. growing up and playing in our Chicago Pinball League, a lot of the people's collections, have a wide range of games. And, even just growing up in our father's home, he's got a lot of old games and new games. So, I grew up, hopping around playing, Monster Bash, and then followed with playing Sharpshooter or Cyclops.
It's been talked about a lot over the years, and I guess part of me on the show wants to maybe avoid all the cliched questions about your dad, because it's been covered so well already, really. But it should be kind of mentioned that growing up in the way you did, pinball was sort of in your veins. But as far as becoming, world championship level, when did that happen for you? What was it like? Obviously Roger Sharp's your dad. There's pinball machines all over. He's on the back glass of a game. He's working in pinball. You're meeting all these people. You still have to do the work and learn the games and have the skills on some level. When did that happen to you? What age were you when you were like, oh my gosh, I am really good at this?
It's funny, growing up, my brother and I always played against each other, and we had no knowledge of how good we were at pinball, versus, playing against our friends who we had always beat. I was always into sports growing up, so I've always just loved competition, whether it's basketball, gymnastics, wrestling, and, with the Chicago Expo in our backyard, our dad always took us there, and we noticed that there was a kids division. And we're like, oh, well, can we play in that? And he said no. And we're like, why not? And he wouldn't really answer us. He didn't want us to kind of form a sibling rivalry in the pinball world, I guess. Because, he knows that we were in karate and other sports. I don't know if he held pinball really dear to his heart, and he didn't want us to, want to see his children fight over, who's better, or who's, worse. But I think after several years of just begging and pleading to let us, compete just to see, how we are, he finally caved in. And I believe I was 11 and Josh was 13. And, we kind of started playing in the junior circuit, which really only consisted of Papa and Expo at the time, and the original, actually, IFPA tournaments. But we just demolished the competition. It was pretty much between Josh and myself. We kind of took turns winning the juniors division at Expo. I know at Papa 4, I got second place in juniors, and Josh got fourth. He ended up winning Papa 5. I won Papa 6. And it was just like the light switch went on. Like, oh, we're really good at this. But it's funny that you asked the question, how do you make that transformation from a juniors player to, the A division? And not to go on a nice tangent, I look at Escher Lefkoff and Joshua Henderson, and it's amazing how well they play against everyone today. They would mop the floor with Josh and I, and that's coming from somebody who's really competitive and not liking to admit, defeat to anyone. But Escher and Josh Henderson would kill Zach and Josh Sharp when we were, 13 to 16 years old, no doubt.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome watching Josh, who was very much viewed by the people watching as this one of the young ones, making it through to the finals last year, getting him in the Final Four with you guys. That was pretty great to watch.
Yeah, he just beat me in a 7-game series to win the Illinois State Championship. So, I saw firsthand again, how consistent and excellent he is as a player.
So let's talk about that. How did the Illinois State Championship go? What's been your history there? I'm curious to hear that. And how did he beat you? Did you not make shots you were looking for? Did he just make more shots? What was that event like for you?
It was a long day. I had a bit of a tough road. I know after my first round match against Jack Danger, who I believe I beat him 4-1. I had the unfortunate pleasure of facing my brother, Josh, and I beat him, I think, 4-2, and nothing crazy in that match. I just played better than him, and the next round I faced Jason Wardrick, and that went to a seventh game, and it was pretty close. And some great games. I know on Ironman he got Do or Die. Trying to think of some other. On Scared Stiff, I put up over 40 million, and it came down to the last game on Theater of Magic, which I was able to beat him on that to get into the finals against Josh. And I think our match in total took 4 hours. I mean, there was one game on Lord of the Rings where I almost pulled, I guess, what's called a left cough by intentionally losing, but it's not in my nature. On Lord of the Rings, Josh ended up with 250 million, and going into my last ball, I was at 12 million. And
you thought about just letting it drain?
Yeah, I mean, I was playing Josh. I mean, I was just exhausted, and it was already, I think, 11 o'clock at the time. I'm like, am I really going to try doing this, or should I just kind of drain and then move on to the next game? But it's just not in my nature. I can never give up. So I was chopping some wood and got up to like 200 million, but unfortunately had a bad feed from the Path of the Dead and drained with a multi-ball list. So I was in striking distance. I made it interesting. And then our last game was on Spider-Man, and he just beat me. I mean, we both put up great games. I think he finished with 450 million, and I put up 280. So I mean, he just played better.
Still good score though. What do you think is your most common drain? Like, if we had a pie chart of Zach Sharp's drains, left lane, center lane, out lane, and right out lane, and I know every game's different, but over the course of all your competitive play in a year, where do you think you drain the most?
Out lanes, for sure.
It's
I would
left
say,
right.
Yeah, the left or right out lane. I mean, I guess that depends on the game. One thing that I would, again, pride myself on, and maybe this ties with my consistency, I rarely have, I guess, like flipper errors or, pilot errors or mistakes. So usually, I mean, obviously everyone misses shots, but most of my drains are, I'd say, on the side.
You saying pilot error there just like triggered a pretty rough memory for me. You and I, you probably don't even remember this. We were at Expo this year in the Classics, and I was playing whatever game was next to Firepower, and you were just stepping up to Firepower, and I had a really bad, just dumb drain, and I kind of stood back in a huff, as pinball players sort of do, and you kind of looked at me and just said, "Little pilot error there?" And I was like, yeah, a little pilot error there.
I do remember.
I was like, thank you, Zach Sharp, yes. No pressure with all of you killers all around me here, but that was funny. Well, that's interesting. What does a tight tilt have effect on your game? If you get up to a game in Papa and it's a game that, say, you're looking forward to playing, and you get there and you realize, man, this thing is set really, really sensitive, how does that affect you, and do you like it or hate it?
I wouldn't say I necessarily hate it, just because it's an even playing field, and I know everyone else has to deal with it. I like to think that I adjust pretty well and quickly based on the game's, tilt sensitivity. Obviously, I wouldn't mind being able to, utilize some nudging techniques. I know for like the tournaments that Josh and I run, I'm usually in charge of the tilts, and I haven't really heard complaints, but I always believe that you can get away with like potentially one good save. Not always, like most likely it should and will tilt, but you might be able to get away with like a really good double danger. And that's like the way I kind of like to play it.
Yeah. One per ball.
Yeah.
What would it mean to you to win Papa?
It would be awesome. It'd be nice to not be known as the Phil Mickelson of the pinball world, for starters.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm competitive and I love to win. It could be the Emporium monthly tournaments, Papa, you name it. I just love winning and playing pinball, and trying to keep the gravy train rolling as long as possible.
You talk about being competitive, and I've read a lot of stuff on you leading up to this interview, and I know you're into a lot of other sports. Is pinball a sport?
I would say yes. I know there's always people on both sides of the fence. I guess it's what's your definition of sport? I always kind of like the dodgeball. If there's a ball in it, it's considered a sport.
Yeah.
But growing up playing, golf, wrestling, gymnastics. I mean, you can argue that gymnastics isn't a sport because it's subjective, and there's judges scoring you, versus something more tangible like basketball or football, where it's a score and clock. But with all the sports I've played and all pressure-packed situations I've been in, nothing has really topped pinball in terms of that. I don't know if it's like an internal intensity and being in the moment, but by that definition, yes, pinball is a sport.
Do you find yourself, when you're at tournaments, looking at who you're playing, say in a final round especially, do you really concern yourself with who you're paired up against at any given moment, or is it really still Zach versus the machine?
It's always me versus the machine. I couldn't care less who's in my group. Preferably I don't like when Josh is in my group unless it's in the finals, because it just makes our road that much harder to meet up in a finals. But no, I mean, everyone is so good now that there's no true, I guess, like easy path. I mean, would I prefer to play one player over, say, Keith Elwin or Bowen? Sure. But at the same time, bring it. We're all playing the same games, and, I'll try beating you.
Since you brought up Keith Elwin, I was looking around on the IFPA pinball website, which we'll get to the fact that you are, vice president of the IFPA. It needs to be mentioned. But I was looking at the head-to-head rankings, the player versus player page, which I think is really neat. And I think a lot of people with you would quickly want to see how you rank up against your brother. And you have a pretty healthy lead on Josh nowadays. I think it's a 102-87 win-loss record there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you mentioned two players, Keith Elwin and Bowen Cairns. They're two of five players, I guess. There's maybe a couple others with just a few, with a real limited, amount of games. But of players you've played a fair amount against, over 15, 20 games, those two players have the edge on you right now. Keith Elwin specifically, you're down 31-60.
Whew! I got my work cut out for me.
Yeah. So what is it? What do you think it is about Keith Elwin that's given him so much success, and Bowen has a lead on you? Because you three are often the names that we hear as talked about the best players in the world. What would you say about those guys specifically in a tournament when you see them playing?
I mean, I would just say consistency. I mean, Keith is, in my opinion, Keith is and always will be like the best pinball player in the world. When my coworkers or friends who aren't in the pinball community ask, like, "Oh, who's the best pinball player?" and like even the year that I finished the year ranked number one, like I'll always concede, Keith is the best player. I mean, hands down, his consistency, what he's able to do. Like, even though I am competitive, I can, tip my hat, and Keith is a better player than me. But that doesn't mean that he will always beat me. And I love the challenge of, playing players who I think are better than me. It drives me.
When you were younger and really, getting into the competitive side of the game, were there players at that time that you remember watching or seeing play, and you thought, oh my gosh, that guy is so amazing? Were there names that pop up in your head when you think back to those years?
Oh, absolutely. I guess a nice segue, but both, Josh and I, tried to play in the juniors division for as long as we possibly could, and it was scary because, there wasn't many tournaments to get your feet wet. It was pretty much like Pinball Expo that, all right, you're 17 back, you are no longer able to play in juniors, you are thrown into, with the Wolves. And I remember the first year I had to play in an adult division was at Pinball Expo. The qualifying game was on Godzilla, and on my last entry, I was able to qualify. I can't remember if I qualified 8th or 9th, but my first round matchup was against Paul Madison. And in my memory and history of playing in competitive pinball, this was the only time that I lost due to nerves. It's the only time that I can actually recount, like shaking, like going up to the game. And I mean, we both didn't play well, but I mean, I choked. And that's after that time when I lost to him playing like complete garbage. I was pissed at myself. Like I could have beaten him. Like I was watching other matches of really good players, like Lyman Sheets, Dave Heggie, and everyone has bad games. Neil Schatz, Bowen, and I got in my own head. I mean, granted, I was only 17, which I look at Asher and Josh Henderson, and it's just like, oh my God, these kids are amazing. But at the time, there wasn't really that same competitive landscape, and I mean, I lost before I even stepped up.
Wow. So take me back to you and Josh becoming a part of the IFPA. Tell me how that happened, and tell me your role as vice president and what that's like now in 2015.
Sure. It's funny. Josh will have to tell you more about that. I just remember I was studying abroad in Australia. This was when, funny enough, Top of Seven got resurrected. I actually missed that tournament. It was painful to watch overseas. And I remember Josh was, asking and digging for information on past results as he was kind of putting together a ranking system. So I actually had nothing to do with, the resurrection of, the IPA, and, Josh has done amazing things. If he were to take a knee and leave, I hate to say it, I wouldn't necessarily be picking up any slack. The hat I wear, though, is really with just PR and, trying to push, as much pinball media exposure out there as I can. So when, Josh, created the ranking and wanted to resurrect the IFPA World Championship, I kind of, stepped into the ring to help out and, do outreach for each player that was competing in that tournament, kind of hometown, to see if, their local publications would be interested in, doing a story on, John Miller, the St. Louis native, is traveling to Las Vegas for, the World Championships. And, I wasn't expecting much, to hit. And it was incredible how much response I got. And that kind of just got the ball rolling of, any event that we were running, including, now the state championship series. I would say the media exposure has been excellent. And, I'm always out there, just trying to push the good word, whether it's me, laying across a pinball machine half naked to, be on some geek calendar to promote pinball, to wearing a Prowess like OTC t-shirt. I'm willing to, I think, all publicity is good publicity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Most people don't know what pinball is, period. We're a small bubble.
Are you looking forward? I mean, I think I know the answer to this already because I know you like to travel, but how much are you looking forward to the IFPA 12 World Championship this year in Sweden?
Oh, I can't wait. I mean, we just booked our flight. I'm actually going to be going out there a few days early with my fiance, Crystal, and we're going to do some just sightseeing, completely no pinball until Josh and Brian Woodard come in, and then, the work really will start. But, the Swedish guys are awesome. When we were out there 4 years ago, I know we had some legal issues, but outside of that snafu, their games played amazing. The people are fantastic. The scenery is it's gorgeous.
Is it interesting to you that we have the number one, ranked player in the world right now is Jorian from Sweden. Does that tell me all I need to know about how important pinball is to these guys and how good they've gotten and how good they're getting?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know. I mean, there's only a handful of the Swedes that come out here for, say Pinburg or Papa. But when I was overseas last year and got to play against a lot more of them, I mean, there are so many great players out there. And funny enough, you just had Kelly on the broadcast, and he's getting to see it firsthand too. And I just told him, to bring back as many titles as you can.
Yeah, exactly. Have you ever knocked your dad out of a tournament?
I'm trying to think. Yes, I know I have. I'm trying to think what tournaments. But there was one in particular that he not only beat me in the finals, he also beat Keith Elwin at a Vegas tournament when we hosted a tournament at the Stern booth. It was on Batman. And He beat Keith and then beat me.
Wow. Is that kind of a proud moment watching your dad go in there and kick butt like that?
Oh, absolutely.
That's awesome. What's your take on a new game? When you see a new game come out, and oftentimes it's around Expo time when we'll first see the new games get thrown into tournaments. We saw The Walking Dead recently, and now there's WrestleMania out there. Have you already scouted WrestleMania? Do you know what's going on with that game? What's your kind of approach when Stern or another company, say Wizard of Oz, comes out? How much do you look at that?
Honestly, I don't get out much, so unless I have access to it or played in a tournament, WrestleMania I have not seen in person yet. Unfortunately, it was out of town, so I missed our Chicago launch party, which I would say the launch parties are usually the first time I will ever touch a machine. Outside of that, I try to just see, what the game's giving me and just looking at, the play field, what likes multi-ball. Not to, repeat what Kaylee said, I am a huge fan of just getting into any multi-ball as soon as possible because I can grind my way to whatever, score it will allow me to, and it's safer.
I had some questions from Facebook today when I let everyone know that we were having another top-ranked player come on, and what you just said, I think, may also apply to one of these questions. One of the questions that came up was, what would be your advice for somebody competing at their first Papa? And that could be extended to any major tournament, their first time. Somebody who might be nervous going onto these games and they hear about these difficult setups of games. What would you tell someone that maybe you were coaching in their first big tournament to do to get ready?
I would say don't be afraid to ask people questions. I know when I'm in line in the Classics banks at Papa, I'll be talking to people I've never met or seen before, or people I've talked to for years, and there's no better way of knowing what to do on the machine or to know how a game is playing than just asking. I mean, in my memory and history, I've never come across people withholding information. I would say I wouldn't ask your opponent in a match, any questions, but outside of that, I mean, just ask.
It is really true. I hear that conversation all the time. In fact, I've had people unsolicited say to me, what game are you in line for? And I don't know, maybe it's Firepower. And they say, well, you know what to do, right? They want me to know the rules before I get there. It's unbelievable. It's great. Let's see. What other questions do we get? Favorite shot in pinball? Do you have a shot that when you think of maybe in tournaments or maybe just when you're playing to practice, do you have a shot on a game that just you're like, that's pinball to me, hitting that shot?
Ooh, that's tough. I'd say my favorite shot in pinball, I would say the hole-in-one in No Good Gophers is pretty sweet. But
that's a good one.
I don't know. It might have to be a really solid drop target shot or just a clean spinner shot. I think that just feels like pinball.
When you really hit it and that thing just flies and you hear the points going.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Our friends over at Dead Flip in your local area asked what thoughts on using headphones while playing?
Hate it.
Hate it. That's the Adam Lefkoff.
I respect people, use of it. I know it helps, calm people's nerves down. Sometimes it kind of blocks the ambient noise. I like to hear everything. I want to know if I got a danger call out because maybe a shot didn't register that I hit. I am in the moment with the game. I want to hear everything. And funny enough, I think it makes me more calm just being able to hear everything. I might even make a joke if I hear somebody complaining on the game next to me while I'm playing.
Yeah, that happens.
It's just, I think it's a byproduct of, growing up and playing against Josh where, we're screaming at each other in our ears, trying, heckling each other. And I think it kind of groomed us into the players we are today.
Do you practice much as a player?
Honestly, not really. I would say my practice is tournaments and league. I like to play for fun, but just from a time perspective, I don't have much of it. But league and tournaments, that is my practice, especially qualifying. I would say qualifying is kind of my way of working out the kinks a little bit, and then pray that finals is fortuitous.
Do you have games at home?
I do. I have 5 games at my condo, but I own 6.
What's in house right now?
In my house, I have a jumping jack, Frontier, Cyclops, Sharpshooter. No surprise there.
No.
And a Stern Star Trek, and then my best friend, because I'm at capacity here in my condo, I have a taxi at my friend's station.
And I've read before that you claim Cyclops is your favorite pinball machine of all time.
Hands down.
Why is that? Tell us why Cyclops.
I mean, it's got drop targets, spinners, but the rule set is just ahead of its time, and I mean, it is just so difficult. I mean, if there's a game that you can't beat, it's this. I mean, not to get all geeked out, but there's a monster bonus that if you were to take out the glass and try to complete it with ball in hand, it would still take like 10 minutes to accomplish. So it's a great game. I love the sounds. The artwork is fantastic, minus, my mom being half naked on it.
Well, there is that.
But no, I mean, it's just.
I wondered if you were going to mention that or not. I think a lot of people may know that story.
I have to. Comes with the territory.
Have you ever run into that game in a tournament setting?
I have. Funny enough, at Papa. It's been in the classic space a few times. And the first time I was in it, Josh and I were so amped to have that game be part of our run. And they changed the settings on it, and they removed a spinner to kind of bastardize it, and it sucked. I mean, we played like crap on it, and I know Keith Elwin put up a really good score on it, and he just kept heckling us for that. He beat us both on it because we were, so amped to play it in the, Papa Classics. But I redeemed myself on it a few years later, and a funny side story, I actually lost on it in a head-to-head match against one of my best friends in the Pinburg Consolation bracket last year.
Wow.
It happens. I love it, but I can lose on it.
It happens. What are your thoughts on, at the biggest tournaments, at the Papas, at the circuit finals, having older classic games, even EM games, in those banks? Good thing, bad thing? Do you like it? Do you not like it?
Oh, like having a classic game in the A division?
Yeah.
I honestly don't care. I know some people, would argue, well, why do you have a classics division then? Then why don't you put, Stern Star Trek in the classics division? And, I don't think Division A is necessarily just qualified as the newest game, because otherwise it should just be called, the Sternaments, if you wanted to have, all Stern games or Jersey, like Wizard of Oz in there. I just love playing pinball that I wouldn't, not pick an older game in my A run just because, just out of spite.
Gotcha. I had a question here, and listener to the show, James, writes, if it was down to Keith Elwin, Kaylee George, Lyman Sheets, and yourself for the Papa 18 championship, and you're playing on Medusa, who would win?
I would.
Of course you would. What else are you going to say,
Of course.
right?
I'm always going to say myself. If I was a betting man, I'd bet on Keith Elwin. Always. But, my competitive instinct, I will always say myself. I don't care if it's ball 3, I'm down by $1 billion. Not to, mention the No Fear T-shirt, but I would always bet on myself.
All right, so we went through the A-Bank with Kaylee, and I got a lot of great feedback. I would love to go through these games with you and sort of hear your thoughts on these games and what games you might be thinking about, working on for your qualifying ticket. But I guess I have to ask you, when you go to Papa and you have to put together one ticket with all good scores, do you sort of have your 5 games, or if that's the number of qualifying games, already picked out before you get there, or does a lot of that change based on the play of those games when you do start qualifying?
It's a little bit of both. Every year, when the game list comes out, Josh and I are kind of talking to each other like, oh, what's your 5? What's my 5? And it's usually the same because, we're the same. But that can instantly change when you play the game. So I would say, and that's a piece of advice for new people, don't just look at the titles. What I like to do, and I actually learned this from Lyman Sheets, of all people, and I like incorporating this. He always plays, his 5 games that he likes for his first run. So for me, just using the bank of games, I'm probably going to pick Mustang, CSI, Medusa, Simpsons, and Creature. Now, maybe when I'm playing those, I'm not going to like how, the couch feels on Simpsons, which, if you're not making shots on the couch, don't play that game. Or, Medusa, maybe I'm just not going to, find the spinner shot on that or the loops. So I like to play, my 5 games pre-playing them. After that, I'll do another ticket and play the other 5 machines, just to, feel everything out. And then from there, I'm usually able to kind of, fine-tune the games I like, and I kind of just stick with it.
Are you breaking news here? Did Creature officially replace Orbiter 1? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what it says on the website.
Okay, I'm looking at I'm looking at probably an older list here. Well, let's do this then. So, looking at this from The Walking Dead, looking at that game, new game. I know you've played it now in tournaments. What are your thoughts on The Walking Dead as far as a game in general, and as far as a game in a tournament?
It's a fun game. I know that there's been some new code update that I haven't been able to play too much of. I got to play a little bit of it at the Indus tournament with the whole bloodbath new little set in there. It's tough because when it comes to a Papa qualifying run, consistency is key. So for me, I don't like picking risky games, which I know you can say Mustang could be a little risky. For whatever reason, I seem to always do somewhat decent on it, so that's why I'm picking it. I don't like choosing, I don't want to say all or nothing games because that's definitely not Walking Dead, but just the fact that the feed is always coming out from the top bumpers and it's not really consistent.
That has got to be
really
one of the most wild card feeds or just mechanics of a pinball machine we've seen in a long time, I think, is the way that ball comes out of there and can bounce straight down the middle off the little guide.
Exactly. And, trying to start Prison or Well Walker, it's a lot of chaos. And, I love playing the game, but, to have my ticket rest on, how's the ball going to feed out the jets, 10 times. I prefer to pick a game like Creature, where I know that the ball will always come to my flipper from the right side. If I'm making my shot, then I'm going to put up a good score.
Now, you said you like Mustang better. What's your approach on Mustang? How do you set that game up as far as modes in a competitive situation? Where do you play on that game first?
You know what? If it's the first game of my run, I'm probably going to go straight for gear multi-ball. I'd do the super skill shot, which if you hold the left flipper and you full plunge around, and ideally if you live catch or just get the ball under control without hitting any switch. If you hit the gears target, the A or the A and the E or the A and the R, so those like 3 metal drop targets, you can add gears instantly. I think if you hit just the A, it adds 2 gears, but if you hit the E or the R, it adds 1 gear. So, I mean, it kind of gets you like right into prime territory of working towards a gear 5 or 6 multi-ball. So I would say I would probably just go straight for like a gear 5 multi-ball, 2x scoring, super jackpot, and then just burnout multi-ball and other modes. Funny enough, I haven't really gotten to play the game that much on the new code, so I'm, a little less familiar with burnout, but, playing it a couple times at Expo and the Southern, or not the Southern Fried Pinball Show, the Free Play, Florida show. I just consistently do pretty well on it, so I have to try it.
What about The Simpsons Pinball Party? You mentioned that, and that's a game, you talked about that epically long Lord of the Rings game. The Simpsons is a game that sort of has that aura of it as long game time. What do you think of that game? What's your approach there? Good game for a tournament?
Sure. I mean, I think any game could be good for a tournament, especially, with what you're trying to accomplish. I think it could be a little long, but, for me, like, I will love having my ticket rest on having, needing to put up a good game on Simpsons. I feel very comfortable on it. I know it was in the A-Bank, I think, like 4 years ago. It actually might have been the last time I didn't qualify in A. And because it's such a long playing game, I never played it first or like second in my run because I didn't want to waste a good effort on a long playing game. So it was kind of always like my ace in the hole. Like if I have a good ticket going, I'm going to wait to play Simpsons as either, game 4 or game 5 of my run. And ironically, I never got the chance to play Simpsons in a meaningful game that year, that Papa, which is unfortunate. But no, I mean, I know there's a lot of strategy of like, comic book guy, hurry up and Daredevil stuff. I keep it super simple, stupid. I just couch multi-ball, and you'll eventually get to alien invasion. Bring in an itchy and scratchy, but majority of my time I am getting the ball up on the upper play field, and I am working my locking, and rinse, repeat.
That's great. That's great. I definitely get a sense from you that if a general approach for Zach Sharp could be written, it's how do I quickly get to a simple and safe multi-ball and just grind it out.
Yep.
That's awesome. You like Medusa a lot.
I do. It's another one of those games. I like trying to avoid risk, and with Medusa, if you stay up on the top where the little zipper flippers are, and you're able to just kind of work on those drop targets up on top, shoot the little scoop hole. I know some people know like the nuances of the rules in the skill shot, which honestly I couldn't even tell you. I like to just keep it up on the top, shoot the little scoop hole in the arrow light, shoot more drops, keep the ball on the top. Oh, it comes down to my lower playfield. I'm going to get it up to the top again and just, try to avoid as much risk as possible.
Now, when you say you don't know the skill shot, is that something you will have figured out by the first time you play it at Papa, or just forget about it and get going into your strategy?
I mean, I kind of know what it is. I know it's like it's a timer base where like the light kind of flashes and rotates. The only thing is to really get it, you most likely have to full plunge really hard, which on some Medusas, if you full plunge, you'll avoid the top playfield altogether. It'll kind of like loop all the way around and go to the bottom flippers. And to me, I will bypass whatever points you can get on a skill shot, and I will take my time in soft plunge to ensure getting the ball on the upper playfield area.
That's really interesting stuff. I like that. All right. So, are there any of those games in there in that bank that you just avoid? Don't even plan on testing out?
No, I mean, like I said, the Lyman Sheets approach, I'm going to play all 10 games.
You'll play them all.
For sure.
Cool. Very cool.
At least one. Because if it's I didn't even say it was part of my run, and maybe I'll change my mind, like Cactus Canyon. I don't know if it's going to have the new code or if it's just, staying as whatever the standard is. I'm assuming it's the same as the one that was in the Papa Finals last year, and I felt very comfortable on it. I hadn't played the game in so long, and it was kind of fun playing it again. And I did pretty well on it, so, maybe that's a game that I'll play.
How many tickets do you think in the last few years in Papa have you gone through before you got your qualifying run where you wanted it?
I'd say on average between 3 and 5.
So not a whole lot of tickets.
No. Ideally, well, it's funny because by no means do I have like a preset budget. But with just the amount of time it takes me to actually complete an entry, it's more of a time factor than anything else. I just don't like churning and burning. And, when you throw the classic runs into the mix, I know Kelly has the approach of, Thursday, A or bust. I love playing in classics, and it's a nice way for me to take a break during my run in A. So it's not that I'm avoiding A on Thursday, but if I just played a 30-minute game on Simpsons, I don't want to step right up and play a 30-minute game on, CSI. I'll take a break, go to classics, do an entry, go back, play a game on A, especially if I have a good run going. Usually the better ticket I have, the longer it takes. And I would say the most I will play in A is probably only like 10 or 11 times. I don't think I've ever eclipsed that much.
Looking at the year as we get to the circuit final coming up and then the new schedules come out, and congratulations, you mentioned your fiance, you're getting married. That's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
So what's that going to be like for Zach Sharp, the traveling pinball player? Is that going to change the amount of events you go to? Are you going to settle down at all and travel less? Or kind of you have an understanding fiance who knows that this is a big part of what you do?
Well, hopefully she'll listen to this. So she is extremely understanding. No, I would say nothing's really going to change until, potential kid or kids get into the mix. She's going to be coming out to Sweden with me. We're actually doing a road trip to Louisville this coming weekend. But, pretty much I would say my travel schedule is always just kind of going to the larger tournaments. I definitely don't travel as much as I used to, but that's just, getting older. And, I have niece and nephews, so even though they're not my children, I like to see my family from time to time. So I, try to limit my travel to only kind of like the bigger tournaments, whether, usually they're on the Papa circuit, but I'd say I like to average, maybe like one tournament a month.
One a month. Very good. What are your thoughts right now as we sort of are in the middle of what a lot of people are calling this resurgence in pinball? And certainly we've seen a spike in the collectors that have joined the hobby, the price of the games, and I think we're also seeing a spike in people coming out to tournaments and expos and events. What's that been like for you? Because you saw some of the early great days being in the family, and then you saw the darker days, and now we're sort of coming back a little bit. What have you noticed? What are your thoughts on that?
I love it. I love seeing people get into it and, improve. Just look at the dead flip guys. I remember when, Jack, Brad, and Nick, all those guys, were starting out, they were little babies and like didn't know what they were doing, and now to see them come up with dead flip, they have their own stream, their jackets, and I mean it's incredible just to see the amount of passion other people share.
Absolutely. Well, Zach, we're going to wrap it up, but I do want to, really wish you luck at the circuit final at Papa at Louisville this weekend. I really appreciate you spending some time and coming on the show, and hopefully I can pick your brain a little bit in Pittsburgh about the C Bank at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Always there.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate it, man, and thanks so much, and best of luck this year.
All right, thanks. You too.
All right, everybody, you have heard from one of the greatest pinball players in the world. You heard from Zach Sharp here on episode 141 of Coast to Coast Pinball. Thanks again to Zach for coming on. Really, really good guy. Clearly loves pinball, loves to compete, loves to play competitively, and had some great insight. I hope that a lot of you took away the gist of what he's saying about don't be nervous and find multi-ball and stay safe when you're playing. That's episode 141 of Coast to Coast Pinball. 142 is not too far away. We've got more people coming on the show. I'm getting really great feedback about the players that have come on. It won't always be like this. I'm definitely trying to focus on some of the players as we lead up to Papa, because that is sort of one of the highlights of the competitive year, but there are big tournaments literally all the time, all year round in pinball right now. Check out ifpapinball.com, check out papa.org if you are interested in finding a tournament to test your skills against some of the best players in the world. We're gonna go all over the place. We have another top 20 player. I have to look at the rankings, maybe higher than that right now, scheduled for the next week or so. And then we have a couple of guys who maybe are not in the top 20, but are possibly on their way to the top 20, and I think that'll be an interesting take. So I'm looking forward to a couple more guests coming on the show, and then we've got to do some news because there's lots going on, and I hear you loud and clear. So until episode 142, take care of yourselves, play some pinball, and enjoy it. Later.